Wow. That's all I can say right now. Wow.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Cardinal Rule Postgame Live after a crazy win over the Minnesota Vikings. Not the way you want to win, but we will take it. So,
yeah, I mean, what else can you say?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about it quite a bit. We'll get your feedback in the chat. I've got Kyler Burd here from the Cardinals Conversation Corp again, who is kind enough to join me. If you aren't already following him on Twitter and subscribe to his YouTube channel, excuse me, the information is in the comment or the description below. Please do. He's a good dude, does good work. Also writes for Raising Zona. Real quick, a couple plugs before we jump in. If you aren't already a member of it, I've got a Discord server that I set up this last week, and there was a great lively chat. There were a group of us that were just kind of having a great conversation during the game. So consider joining that. It's really a great way to connect with other Cardinals fans. It was really a good, lively discussion. So please be sure to do that. Also, my channel now has members, and there are emojis and a few other things, goodies with that. So please consider if you'd like to support the channel, check that out. But let's get into it. All right, Kyler, I know we're both just kind of, reacting and just kind of processing this. What was give me just a couple big takeaways to get this conversation started.
Yeah. Wow. I'm still sort of processing what happened because, first of all, when was the last time the Arizona Cardinals have been on the right side of bad kicking luck? That's been us. Two or three times last season and many times over the last few years. But when has that happened to us the last time? That's a good question. Someone put that in the comments because I know someone knows. But the thing that struck me first, obviously, because it was right out the bat and throughout the entire game, is the defense just didn't look the same as they did against the Tennessee Titans. And on paper, the Minnesota Vikings and Tennessee Titans have a lot offensively in common, just in that they have a big trio with kind of a mediocre quarterback, but who runs the system well. And Dalvin Cook absolutely feasted on our defensive line the entire game, and he went down 2 or 3 times with injury. He wasn't even feeling good, and he had an amazing game. So that's what stuck out. Offensively, there were some mistakes that happened, but they still moved the ball. They still scored points. But that Cardinals defense, it was a concerning change from week 1.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the same things you saw. And, in my preview video for this game, I talked about how just because we stopped, Derrick Henry does not mean we're going to be able to stop Dalvin Cook. There are different types of running backs, right? Cook
completely
is completely
different.
Yeah, Cook is not as powerful, but he's shifty. He's a better receiving back. And someone in the Discord server, we were talking about during the game, and someone even said, "Yeah, it looks like what you said in your video about that is right. That it doesn't mean we're going to be able to stop him." And he gashed us. It was bad. The defense struggled in the first half. They settled down in the second half. They still gave up some plays, but
they did.
They looked much better in the second half, but coming out of that Tennessee game, we thought, is this an elite defense? And the answer is not yet. It's hard to know which defense we're closer to. Are we more like the Tennessee defense, or are we more like the defense against the Vikings? So it's hard to know, and that's why we need more games for that sample size. But yeah, the kicking thing, man. Prater, and think about it this way, right? Prater, that 62-yard field goal ended up being necessary. Like, if he didn't make that 62-yarder, in that second, was that the third quarter or early fourth quarter?
Third?
Yeah. Or was that at the end of the
No, it was in the fourth.
Was it the second quarter? Like right before the end of the
second
halftime?
quarter, right before half.
And we need to talk about what a heads-up play Rondale Moore made setting that up. He caught the ball, juked a little bit, and got out of bounds with 1 second left to set up a 62-yard field goal that ended up obviously being necessary. So yeah, those, being on the wrong end of the kicking woes, or the right end, so man. So I just want to real quick say hey to everyone who's here, not Mr. Beast Cookie, Connor Kelly, Garrett L, Clover, Payo Time, a Rams content creator I'm going to be doing a collab with. Good to see you. Big Play Slay, he's a Eagles fan. Lindo, Supreme Goat, Nick, Greg, Awesome Kid, Classy Nasty, and Mr. Mono. So, and the Carolina Crown. Okay, so got a number of folks here. Thank you for being here. But John Clemens, what's up? So got a lot of folks here, kind of filing in. So we're gonna MTK Bongo. It's probably going to be a point where there's enough folks here. I probably won't be able to start doing all the call-outs. But thank you all for being here. What a crazy game to talk about. So, I just did my rapid reaction video, and I've got kind of just my notes I've kept during the game. So maybe I'll just kind of, kind of mention a couple of things that stood out to me, and maybe let you kind of, can give your thoughts on them, Kyler. And then everyone in the chat, if you've got some observations and comments or feedback, please let us know. Okay, and thank you. We got a super chat. Thank you, MGO. Marco Wilson injured. Any concerns? I haven't heard the reports of that. Obviously, we're going to be checking that out. He was injured, and I think Antonio Hamilton I saw was in the game, so I didn't watch closely enough to see if Wilson, if he came back or not. But obviously, that's a concern if he's injured. So hopefully he's okay. We'll be watching to get more information on that, and of course, need to. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. So yeah, that's definitely the Marco Wilson kind of injury situation, something we will be watching. So hopefully he's okay. So let me throw just a couple things out there. So Isaiah Simmons looked good again, I thought. He was all over the place. He was one of the few defenders who actually got some big tackles on Cook a couple times. And I thought he made some good plays in coverage. What were your thoughts on what you saw from Simmons?
I thought Simmons looked good again. I think he had 6 tackles in the game. He had that one tackle for loss. I guess it didn't really go as a tackle for loss, but stopped Dalvin Cook at the line. He played well. He continues to play well. He could be a difference maker on that defense for sure. Young guy, super big like him. I thought he played well. He is one of the stars in that defense for this game, for sure.
Yeah, it's coming into the regular season, I feel like we were talking about Zaven Collins so much about how impressive he was in the preseason, and there was a lot of question marks about Isaiah Simmons. And man, Simmons has been he's been the more impressive of the two. Collins has looked good, but Simmons even more so. So yeah, for sure. What were your thoughts on penalties? I mean, I've got a few notes, but I'll let you kind of start the conversation on that.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't anything as noticeably horrific as that opening drive in Tennessee. And I don't think that they were going to sway the outcome of the game one way or the other, really. But obviously the biggest one that did or almost swayed the game the wrong way was Tanner Vallejo's roughing the kicker penalty. Yeah. I think I tweeted about that one. That one, roughing the kicker is a game killer. If you're on the verge of getting a big stop, getting the ball back and taking a bigger lead, and then you give a roughing the kicker, and that resulted in a field goal and them taking the lead back. So that was the one that might have made the difference. And I think there were some missed calls too. I think there were maybe a couple missed face masks on Kyler, and one of them, he got hit in the head as he threw that bad interception in the third. When he's just chucking it down the field, he kind of threw a little late, taking a hit on the head. Yeah. So there was some missed stuff, but overall, I think the offensive line did play better penalty-wise than week one.
Yeah, like very early in the first quarter, there were those back-to-back false starts, and I
Yeah.
made note of that. I was like, "Oh man, here we go again." But they seemed to clean it up afterwards, so
Mhm.
that was encouraging to see. So I'm with you there. The Tanner Vallejo thing. Now I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he also hit the punter last week? But because he got a hand on the ball, it wasn't a
Yeah,
penalty.
he
So
did. Yeah.
so that was him. That's what I thought. So to me, like even though last week it wasn't a penalty, the fact that he hit the kicker 2 weeks in a row seems like a concern because he got lucky
Mhm.
last time, right?
He did. Yeah, he
Um,
got very lucky.
I mean, you love the aggression, but
I mean,
like you said,
it's like I was talking in a chat with Aaron Van Buren, another guy from the Cardinals Conversation Core podcast that I'm on. His father is a special teams coach,
mhm,
and one of their things is you don't leap after the kicker when you're
mhm,
trying to down a punt like that, because
yeah.
you're probably going to end up with a roughing the kicker call if you don't get lucky and touch that ball first. And he's done it 2 weeks in a row. You're right. It's a little concerning.
Yeah, well, yeah, and Simon's mentioning that yeah, if he almost tipped it, but and that's a tough rule, right? Because then
Yeah.
in the Discord server, and again, I'm going to plug that again. If you aren't part of our Discord server, check it out. There were a bunch of us chatting all throughout the game. But like that's such a game killer, but it's like one of those things, like how do you like if you're diving, how do you undo that? Like I get why, like if you're tackling the quarterback for a sack and kind of trying to roll and not put all your weight on him, and why that's a penalty. But
Hmm.
like literally going for the kicker, you're kind of mid-air and it's hard not to hit him. So that, I mean, I understand that the punter is and kicker both are in, of any player in the field, are arguably in the most physically vulnerable position when they're doing their job. So I
Yeah.
understand why you want to protect them, but you think there might be a little bit of leeway, but I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So it's so a couple other things. Um, I hate to say this, aside from the one touchdown, Peterson did a good job on Hopkins. I know a lot of people wanted to see him get torched, and he, maybe that early touchdown on Peterson by Hopkins was enough to satiate the folks who wanted to see Peterson get torched, but he held up pretty well, and Hopkins, I mean, Kyler had to spread it around, and Hopkins had that one touchdown, but wasn't a huge part of the game after that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about? What were your thoughts on Peterson's play and Hopkins?
I think maybe it woke him up a little bit when he got burnt on that first touchdown
Mm-hmm.
early. But they doubled the dude, like Jordan. Yeah, like Jordan just said.
Yeah.
And Kyler just didn't seem to look that way. So the whole game, I really didn't know whether that was Kyler sort of getting fixated
Right.
on the hot guys, because he seemed to be staring down Rondale Moore a little bit too much. I think led to that pick six. He got a little bit too caught up in Rondale Moore, and AJ Green he gave a couple tries to, but I'm not sure that Hopkins had a reception in the second half.
Yeah, I'd have to look, but he didn't. He might have had a short one. I don't know, but he was definitely not a factor. So, and again, we're all processing as we go. So that's a good point about the double team. So that may be a big part of what happened there. Yeah. How did you feel the offense looked in general? The Cardinals offense.
If you were able to somehow take away the 2 interceptions, the offense looked good. It worked. I would still like to see them run the ball a little bit more.
Right.
They seem to really, really get away from running in really odd times and positions in the game. Like we're definitely going to be talking about Cliff Kingsbury's play calling when you have 2 minutes, 50 seconds left and you don't run the ball. But other than that, Kyler can sling it. He made 2 bad mistakes. And the pick six was really inexcusable. There was no way to not see that guy. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
Maybe you can forgive the second one. Like I said, maybe he got hit and it messed with the trajectory of the ball. I don't know. But before that pick six, Kyler Murray had a 158 rating. Like he was playing a perfect game almost. He had 2 incompletions at the end of the first half. And he finished with a great stat line minus the interceptions. So it works.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like the interception Nick Vigil was just, it was horrible. It was really bad.
It's
I mean,
bad.
he looked at him, he threw it. Maybe there was a little bit of pressure, but nothing to the degree that he's used to. He's made better throws under less pressure. That was his worst, I think, throw. I mean, of the day, probably by far. And I agree with you. The other interception, I'm not gonna. He seemed to get hit a little bit. I'm not gonna. I still think in that situation he didn't need to throw it. Go for
no. Well, that's the other thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
Situationally, you didn't have to do that there.
Mhm.
You had the lead at that moment. You don't have to chuck it down the field 40 yards, and they were running the ball well in the third quarter somehow. So you didn't have to do that. That was a mistake.
Yeah, and so maybe it should have been a penalty, so that that's fair. But I'm going to use this quote. You've probably heard this before: "Process over results," right? And so maybe it should have been a penalty, but the process of making that throw was the wrong. It was, I think, a bad decision, right?
I agree.
So the process was not good, and the results weren't good. And then I think there was another someone in the Discord was saying like he was just fixating on AJ Green at that kind of late in the game.
Mm-hmm.
He threw that into double coverage in the end zone. That was, we were lucky it wasn't an interception. So that was a little bit rough. I want to say hey to some of the folks that are here. We've got Tapatio Man, JP's here. Not a strategist, he's an analytics guy. Okay. Tapatio Man. Let's see. PC Tripack. I hope I'm getting that right. We need a blitz. Our corners can't hold up. Yeah. Jay in the Bay. He's a 49ers content creator. What's good? Cards got lucky. Well, we all get lucky sometimes, my friend. If I wanted to be snarky, I'd say you got lucky you were playing the Eagles because that was an ugly game. But hey, man, sometimes you get lucky. It happens. Absolutely. 2 checkdowns on second pick. Yeah, Lance is saying that. Yeah. What a game. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, a lot of folks jumping in. Listen, we did get lucky. Absolutely. We had to rely on them missing the kick, so it was a lucky win. At the end, the team played well enough to be in that position, and like Jay in a way says, a win is a win. Yeah, I mean, listen, for both of us, right? You beat who's in front of you on the schedule. So, and I'm not trying to be a troll, but man, if I were a 49ers fan, I wouldn't feel really optimistic about the win we have, but listen, you got to take it. So hopefully you guys, for your sake, your team can improve and build off that. We've got to clean up some stuff though. The Cardinals have to clean up some stuff on defense, especially. Absolutely. Was there anything else that sat to you? I've got a few other notes that I can jump to, but I want to.
I think on defense, one player that did stand out to me is Budda Baker. He just seemed to be in the right places in the right time.
Yeah.
And he's just continually proving why he's, in my opinion, the best safety in the league, just because of where he can be. And I've seen some Seahawks fans complaining after this game, that Jamal Adams, you paid him all this money and all he does is blitz. He does more than that. I'll give him some credit. But Budda Baker really is one of the most complete, well-rounded safeties that I've ever seen. And he plays really hard. He hits hard, and he reads the play really well. So Budda Baker, I think, should get the defensive MVP of this game. We talked about Simmons, and he had a good game too, but Baker was there exactly when he needed him, and that's all that you can ask of your star safety. So he wins on that side of the ball.
Yeah, Baker ended up in my notes a few times watching the game. He was everything you expect and hope from him. So a couple things I just want to mention a couple. Did we mention the 62-yard kick? We talked about that, but it was a franchise record. So that's awesome. All right, so Hans Sager saying Peterson gave up 2 touchdowns. Don't forget the Rondé Moore touchdown. Kid me, didn't have a good game. You're probably right. And if I'm wrong about any of my observations, we just watched it, and I'll go back and look at it. So I'm sure I'm wrong about a few things. Thanks for that I'll be interesting to look at, and when I look at the grades, they'll show like, and I'll look back at the stats and stuff and see how many he gave up. So thank you. Rondale looked so good though. Yeah. So one other thing, I think a player who quietly had one of the best games that no one's talking about is Max Williams.
Yeah. He played so well.
Yeah. I mean, listen, like I tweeted out when you probably saw my tweet when that one ball was tipped and he caught it. I was like, yeah, I'll take it, but that doesn't make me feel better about our offense. I like that one reception he got from the tip that he made it, made something out of. But that wasn't the only good play, right? He had he had one really good reception that he got kind of upended and he still held onto the ball. And I felt like there were at least 3 really good plays I saw from him.
I'm thinking that we have to call him Yaks Williams from now on because he ran really hard. He got the yards after catch. And yeah, the tip one, another little piece of luck that came after the fumble that wasn't a fumble with Rondale Moore, which was another tip that looked like a game changer too. But Max Williams, he did have a quietly really, really good game. I don't know how many yards he finished for. Let me see real quick.
Yeah, you know what? I've got this in front of me. Max Williams had 7 receptions for 94 yards.
Yeah, I don't know what his career high is, but I would imagine that's pretty close.
Rondale Moore, 7 receptions for 114 and 1 touchdown. I've got it in front of me. Kirk, 3 for 65. How about that one play that looked a lot like the touchdown last week? Where Kyler, on the zero blitz or whatever, kind of going back off his back foot, throwing it up to Kirk again. Wasn't a touchdown, but it was a huge. Wasn't that on 4th down?
Yes, It was on 4th and 5.
Yeah,
on the back foot. I mean, that's quickly becoming like a Kyler Murray signature. Is that exact throw? And I think you had a tweet out there, and I don't remember exactly what play it might have been about that one. But that Patrick Mahomes could have made the throw, but not the run.
Yeah.
And Lamar Jackson could have made the run, but not the throw. And I think you're right. Kyler Murray has like the unique combination of all of these fantastic talents.
Yeah.
He can do it all. It's just like some of those mental mistakes they still makes because he's 24 years old,
Right. I think I put that tweet out there about the Rondale Moore touchdown because it looked going to scramble.
Yes.
But either play you can apply it. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of, I've said this a few times that Kyler Murray makes throws that maybe 1 or 2 other quarterbacks might be able to make in the league. And when you add the combination of the scramble to get to the throw, I mean, Mahomes can make the throw. He can run well. But he doesn't make the run Kyler makes. Lamar makes the run, but not the throw. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Paul is talking about, the defensive line was atrocious, 6 tackles by the entire defensive line. Okay, I didn't look at that. I'll tell you, our pass rush was not a factor. After last week, everyone, and the Vikings offensive line is not as good as the Titans in terms of the personnel. They played better. They played really, really well. And, a lot of folks thought the Cardinals were going to have Chandler Jones going to have 10 sacks if he had 5 against. Well, not so. In fact, I think there was their 1 sack, and it was by Chandler Jones was in on it, but at least on ESPN, Marcus Golden was credited with that.
Okay, I was wondering if he got half a sack or something for that because he should. He wrapped up the ankle.
Now that's what it says on ESPN. Maybe the box score will look different. Sometimes they change that, but pass rush was not a factor. In fact, it seemed like when they were getting pressure, most of the time Cousins would scramble and make something happen, so.
I mean, Kirk Cousins had a 30-yard pickup with his legs. He had a bigger one-off run than Kyler Murray did in this game, which is not something that you can go into the game and expect. And I definitely didn't go into the game expecting the Minnesota offensive line to just play out of their minds good. And not even just the pass pro, but they opened up complete canyons for Dalvin Cook to run through. They played really well.
Yeah, I want to just hit on a few comments. Sorry if I don't get everyone's comments here. There's one sure way to get your comment. That's a super chat, but I will try to get a few of them in there. Arizona Animal, Arizona Animal. He's never how shall I say, he's not vexed with humility, and he's definitely doesn't mince words. But I think but this is a good take. I will say this, although I don't agree with the fighting, but the point, I noticed this play, and you might have noticed it too, where he looked like he was kind of, it's almost like he didn't realize that someone's coming behind him. And not only did he not make that first down, which he could have and should have, I think, if he tried, but also it seemed like he was just kind of slowing down and then realized the pass rusher or the defensive player was coming up and kind of, hit him in the leg on his way out. So, so it was a play that was not the most heads up play by Kyler.
I mean, I'd agree with him that Kyler had a couple awareness issues in the game. There was that one, and then Danielle Hunter just coming up right behind him without him even seeing or noticing him. So he had some awareness problems.
Yeah, so that was a little bit of a concern. Alfred, when matched up against Jefferson, looks slow and unready. I worry about other quicker type receivers. He might get matched up. Yeah, if he's our corner. Yeah, I mean, Jefferson might be, is arguably one of the best receivers in the league, up and coming receivers in the league, but that is a concern. When our pass rush doesn't do anything, is not effective, that's going to happen. So, I think what we've seen here is what this defense looks like if we don't have our pass rush, right?
Yeah.
Which is a concern, right? Feel free to jump in with observation. I work just kind of shooting from the hip here because we just ended the game. I know you, Kyler here was just putting up an article, I think, right before we jumped in here.
Yeah, I just finished it.
And I just put up a quick video, so we're both just kind of jumping in here. San Francisco's 1-2 on the road. They'll take that any day. NFC West is nasty. Yeah, I mean, listen, a win is a win.
Absolutely.
And this NFC West is definitely still looking competitive and tough.
A complete bloodbath.
Yeah, right. So I'm just kind of going through my notes. I think Simmons looked good. We talked about that. Rondale Moore looked awesome. Some costly mistakes, the interceptions, run defense needs work, cornerbacks not the most impressive. Special teams had that huge play though to pin them down to the 1 yard line. So that was definitely nice to see.
That was big.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked about the fact that even though he did throw the 2 interceptions, Kyler Murray ended with 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he has 9 total touchdowns through 2 weeks now.
Yeah, for sure. I thought I felt like when they ran the ball, they were effective too. Let's see, looking at, it was 103 yards total, including Kyler Murray's 31 yards. So, okay, Edmonds had 46 yards, 5.8 yard average. So that was good. Connor had 26 yards, 3.3 yard average. So Edmonds seemed to run the ball a little bit better. But they had some nice runs I saw. If anyone feel free, if you got some observations or comments, get them in there, and I'll get them up here. Like Collins, I felt like he ran in blind at all power and didn't use his head when trying to stop the run. Okay, and maybe that's part of the reason we struggled. That might work a little bit against Henry, but not against Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, Cook's just so different. He's not an ISO runner, and he took the edge a lot, and that just didn't seem like something that they were ready for.
Yeah. Oh, so Chris here, 10 points in the last 2 minutes of the half shows playoff expo. Yeah. I mean, that's the end of the second half was probably the most exciting part of the game, with the big touchdown to Rondale Moore, some of those big plays. So that was definitely pretty impressive. Christian Kirk looked elite in those last couple of weeks. He's making catches. He could never get in the pass. Yeah, maybe they got him a better role that he's not on the outside, playing a little more in the slot. So AJ Green had a couple nice plays too, right? A couple of nice catches. That touchdown. In fact, to me, that touchdown is the kind that, where they threw it to him and he kind of made that big boy play and used some power to get it in the end zone. That's the kind of stuff I think you're looking for from AJ Green when you bring him in. What were your thoughts on AJ Green?
He looked better this week. Kyler looked to him a little bit more this week too. I think that's what he was meant to do, is sort of be the red zone threat, because he's a tall, lanky receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And he was smart on that one touchdown reception that he had. So he's the old smart guy who still has it. He does admittedly look slow when you compare him to Hopkins, who's still very, very much in his prime, and Rondale Moore, who's just insanely fast.
Right.
So it is weird that AJ Green looks like the slow old guy on the field, and he's really not that old, and he's really not too slow either. But he has been less of a part of the offense than I expected at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I think AJ Green's role in this is his perfect role is to be that big receiver who is a red zone target, gets those back shoulder passes, converts tough third downs and things like that. Want to hit the super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Hey, Professor, when the Cardinals make a play, so you pull that Martin off the wall and play for us. Well, it's not a Martin, it's a Yamaha, but it is a Dreadnought style guitar. When they make the playoffs, I think I've said in the past, when I get to 3,000 subscribers, I'll play a chord.
Okay,
maybe just one chord. Or I'm not the greatest. I'm okay on guitar. I'm not. You might be disappointed if I play too long, but so we get me to 3,000 subscribers. Maybe I'll pick up a guitar and play maybe even 3 chords, one for every 1,000. But thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate the support. And as always, so yes, thank you, Hans Sager. So there's a comment I wanted to bring up that I think is a couple of them that how come Cliff didn't call the timeout? That's a good question. Thoughts on that at the end?
I don't know, because his timeout calling was, and consistently does seem to be, all over the place. I don't know the last time I've seen a Cardinals game that did not have an early first quarter timeout for no apparent reason. So I don't know. I don't know why he does some of the things he does.
Did they have any timeouts left? That's a good question, because they'd mishandled them. And Paul G., who runs a Cardinals forum, had mentioned this in a message that the mishandling of the timeouts is a concern by Cliff. So I don't know if they had any, but yeah, I was curious about that. My best thought is that Cliff had kind of resigned himself to the fact that we were going to live or die by that field goal attempt. So I don't know, but yeah, maybe we'll hear more about that. So I'll let you take this question first. What are your thoughts about the O-line play this game?
Well, the fact is that they gave up 3 sacks, and I think all 3 of those sacks are going to be credited to DJ Humphries, because all 3 of them came from Danielle Hunter. However, I'll look at the grades and all of that when they come out. But from the eye test, minus those 3 sacks, they didn't look that bad. Kyler Murray had some good protection, and he had some really good pockets throughout the game. So they had little moments where they messed up, and sometimes it's just the guy on the other side's he just beats you. And Danielle Hunter's an incredibly talented pass rusher, so all the credit in the world to him. But for the most part, I thought they actually played rather well in pass pro. Yeah,
I will add to your eye test observation and say that at least 1 or 2 of those sacks, I think Murray was most responsible for, because he held on to the ball for a long time.
Yeah,
a couple of them,
a really long time.
Yeah, so those were the kinds of sacks, and I at least the ones that come to my mind, they were not the kind of sacks where the pass rusher gets around the guy and is immediately in the face of the quarterback. Those were the kinds of sacks where Kyler's holding onto the ball, maybe even scrambling a little bit. They were Russell Wilson style sacks, holding the ball a little bit long. So, so I would add that to the observation in terms of thinking. I think the offensive line probably played reasonably well, but like you, I'm going to look at the grades. Chris is asking how many touchdowns per receiver. So what I'm seeing on ESPN, Rondale Moore had one, DeAndre Hopkins had one, AJ Green had one receiving, and then I think Kyler had a rushing touchdown, right? Looks like.
Yep. Yeah.
So so Moore, Hopkins, and Green each with the touchdown. W's W today. Seahawks took an L, but Lockett scares me. Rams look dangerous, and Cliff has never beaten them. 49ers are a bit banged up, but still nasty. Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a tough division. Let me ask you this, and certainly everyone in the chat wants to add this. How do you feel about the team big picture, taking both games into account now?
I don't know. It's hard when you take the average of the two games. Offensively, you have to feel pretty good. You've at least averaged 34.5 points per game. And if that's anything that you can maintain throughout the season, you're going to win quite a few games putting up that many points. Mm-hmm. But the defense was the story of two completely different games. And I have no idea which one is actually going to be the average at the end of the day. Because I'm still concerned about cornerback, the secondary, especially with Marco Wilson going down. And you realize how severely lacking in depth we are at that position. But on the other hand, if the pass rush can get back to anything like week one, you don't necessarily need an elite secondary to win games. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I also don't know, and I'll have to think more about it as we go through the week and rewatch things. I think it has a big impact on a game when on like the second, third play of the first quarter, you get punched in the mouth on a giant blown coverage and go into an early deficit. Like that haunts you the rest of the game, and they bounce back. But even the fact that your secondary got burnt that bad, it's hard to come back from that. So I'd like to see a game where something major like that doesn't happen on one of the first plays.
Yeah, and that blown play I think was on Byron Murphy Jr. in it. It
was,
which that's concerning because had high hopes. It's still early. He looked really good last week, struggled this week, but that prediction about him being a top 15 cornerback is a little shakier. And I wonder, and yes, I think you're right. The in general, there's a lot of ambivalence. Which team are they? Where are we at? Coming out of last week, this team looked like on a trajectory to be a legit Super Bowl contender. This week, they look more like the Cardinals of last year, in terms of the mistakes and the cardiac cards. So if the average is somewhere between, then that's an improvement, right? If we're somewhere, Cardinals are somewhere between the team they were last week and this week, then that's actually a really good place to be in. I
think if your average is actually between those two games, you're still a playoff team. Because you're going to be putting up a ton of points every week. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's concerning if the team is closer to week 2 than week 1. Because we got out to a hot start last year too, and I don't think anyone has forgotten that fact. We beat the San Francisco 49ers when we were not expected to, and we beat the Tennessee Titans when we weren't expected to, but the season still ended up a little bit disappointing.
For sure.
But my gut would say we are closer to week 1 than week 2. That's what the gut says. But we'll see. And Jacksonville should tell us whether or not on paper we should consistently beat teams that are inferior from a roster perspective.
Yeah, that in fact, in many ways, that Jacksonville game is going to be a really interesting litmus test, not because they're at all competitive team compared to the teams we've played, but because it's going to show us, do we play down to our competition, or are we, like Minnesota lost a gut punch game to the to the Bengals, and I feel, man, Minnesota fans, it's got to be rough. Yeah, and then they lose this game that they, by all rights should have won based on having when you're making a reasonable field goal with time expiring, you should win that game. And so, but if we play down to Jacksonville, that's concerning. If we blow them out, then it's like, okay, we barely won against a Vikings team that has some good players in offense. I mean,
and it's early in the season, so it very well might be the case the Vikings are a pretty good team.
Yeah.
They just had some bad luck, and they were playing a good Cardinals team. We'll see that later on down the season, because the Vikings looked pretty good. They didn't look bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole perspective can change by halfway through the season. We'll see if the Vikings look like a real team or not. And Jacksonville will really help to see, like you said, if we blow them out, then that's at least some comfort that there are some teams on our schedule that on paper are just not as good as the Arizona Cardinals. And if you can consistently win all of those games without the trap games, then you're on a good track, and you steal some of the games that maybe you shouldn't win. You're on track to be a playoff team.
Yeah, for sure. Vikings are good, just unlucky. Hans Sanger, this I know this is not a guitar channel, but I've had Yamaha bass guitars and guitars. For if you're looking, I am not sponsored by Yamaha, but if you want a quality guitar that's not expensive, Yamaha's good. Anyway, let me ask you a question. Coming into the season, the Titans and the Vikings were both teams with quarterbacks and offenses that were supposedly heavy play action pass offenses. But the Titans, all but completely abandoned the play action. I mean, they ran like maybe 4 play action, I think I heard, or something like that. I didn't count, but the Vikings seemed to commit to the play action pass and stick with it more. So is play action pass kind of a vulnerability? Is that part of why? I mean, clearly that's not necessarily why Dalvin Cook gashed our defense. But how much do you think that play action came into play in terms of why this game went the way it did?
I don't know. That is interesting, because I wasn't even thinking about play action throughout this game. I think I was just too nervous the entire way. But you're right. And I think historically in 2020, that was something that the Cardinals struggled with a lot too. So it could very well be a continuing problem.
Yeah, with young linebackers, you wonder, I mean, are the young, I mean, Simmons looked good. Collins, I think, looked good too, from what I could tell. But you just wonder, is that, are young linebackers going to kind of, take the bait a little more with the play action,
Well,
down?
I've seen some comments on here too, that were sort of pointing this out, that the D-line as a whole and our linebackers, they played the ball very, very aggressively in the first half, which led to a lot of running room for Dalvin Cook, because he's a smart, savvy playmaker. He's a very, very, very talented elite running back. So they might have overcorrected a little bit on that. Play the ball too aggressively, and play action can burn you hard. And maybe we did see that in the first half. Now I've had some time to think about that. Yeah,
and it felt like Dalvin Cook, I mean, wasn't as effective in the second half. He still had some good runs, but I mean, he was much more effective in the first half. So, and I'm just trying to think, and that's an interesting point, that aggressive play that some folks have talked about. When you're going against a big, powerful back like Henry, going aggressively downhill and hitting him head on is a way to stop him. A runner like Dalvin Cook, who's shiftier, and maybe that's part of that was not the way to play him,
And as talented as Henry is and has proven himself to be, I think he's a little bit easier of a back to read than Dalvin Cook, maybe, because Derrick Henry's like the very traditional, almost a throwback to just a power back that's going to run it down your throat. And you can counter that with extreme aggression. But with a running back like Dalvin Cook, or maybe a shiftier guy like Aaron Jones, that can very well burn you if you're too aggressive.
Yeah. Simon has a good point. We talked about it a little bit, but special teams really did seem to be a key, part of this game. The field goal, 62-yard field goal, the punt coverage, that was just an outstanding play. So yeah, for sure. So you're right. Hopefully this is just part of that learning process. Early season, a little too aggressive, but they'll figure it out. And as the season goes on, the young linebackers and everyone will kind of find their stride and not make those kinds of mistakes. So yeah, I don't know. Anything else that jumps out to you in the chat, or anything you observed? Kirk's a good game manager. If you call a a good game, then he will look good. Which they called a good game.
Mike Zimmer called a good game.
Yeah, I always think, to me, Kirk Cousins to me is I think of him as a quarterback, and I teach, so I think he's like a B- student. He's a guy who can he's good. Absolutely. And he can get that A in some assignments, but he's not going to wow you consistently. And that's kind of, to me, what he is. But when he has a good running game, when the play action's working, he's a veteran. He can certainly, make you pay. So
he's just such a different quarterback than Kyler Murray, who you sort of expect to see special, crazy things out of Kyler Murray at least once a game. I don't think you ever expect that out of Kirk Cousins. It happens occasionally, but you just expect him to plod down the field and play a little bit like a Ryan Tannehill, who's probably not going to do crazy things, but he's capable of winning games. So I think B- is absolutely appropriate for Kirk Cousins, and Ryan Tannehill too, probably.
Yeah, I might even say Tannehill's a solid B. I don't know. I think. I don't know. I mean, Tannehill is early in his career, but was it Adam Gase the reason that he struggled? He had a rough game last week, but I don't know. Yeah, but they are very similar, so no doubt about it. Yeah. If there's any other comments in the chat that you saw, or I think if anyone has any questions or comments, get them out there. Otherwise we'll probably wrap this up soon. Anything else, Kyler, that you want to point out from the game? Or have we cleared out your notebook?
We've cleared it out for now.
Okay.
There you go. You pulled that one up. I think that's good.
Yeah. So D-Hop has to be targeted. Kyler needs to be a little more decisive, but overall he played really well. Moore is a stud. Yeah. They didn't go to Hopkins in the second half really at all, or much. Be interesting, how much was he double teamed? You'd think they would have gone to more. Kyler needs to be more.
I'll have to rewatch that,
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't know, thinking back in my memory, whether Kyler was avoiding him because of coverage or if he was just focused on other players. Because I think Kyler has a little bit of the tendency to do that sometimes. Get a little caught up with one receiver that he really likes for a game.
For sure. All right, Kyler, why don't you tell everyone again where they can find you and where they can check out your work, and maybe even plug your latest article.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Twitter personally at azcard_birdseye that you can see on the screen right there. And if you go in the description, I also have a podcast with two other guys. We all write for Raising Zona, which some of you have probably seen some articles from them before on Twitter or other places. So I just wrote the game recap. It should be up soon, so maybe go check that out. And we would really appreciate it if you go give the Cardinals Conversation Core a subscription on YouTube. We have a weekly podcast and other videos that we put out throughout the week. So we're trying to grow that. And as always, it's a pleasure to be here and talk to you. You have such an active chat. I love it.
Yeah, it's really makes fun. I'm going to pitch one more couple of things, and then we'll just get the last few comments, and then we'll probably wrap up in just a moment. I mentioned this at the beginning. If you are on Discord, or even if you're not and you want to try out Discord, I've set up a Discord server. The information's down below. Today during the game, there was a good lively conversation about 10 or 15 of us, and the Discord's only been up for a week. It was really enjoyable watching the game and just chatting with people through it. So I'd encourage you to all check it out. hope to help build a nice community for folks, who want to just kind of connect and and kind of talk through the game. It was a good time. So check out the link to the Discord server below. And join that. Also want to mention I have memberships set up for the channel. So there are memberships if you want to support the channel to get some free. There's some with your membership you get some custom emojis I set up with like Dennis Gardick and a few other fun emojis. So and I also want to send a shout out. I have two members who joined this week. One is a gentleman, his username's Hossicle. He's also in the Discord chat. So I really appreciate that. And Brennan Store, actually a friend of mine who I know who supports the channel. So want to shout out them and thank them. So yeah, please check out the Discord server. Also my Twitter handles down there. Follow me on Twitter. Let's get these last couple of comments before we get out of here. Let's see. What is it going to take for us not to commit those flags? So, the flags, I didn't feel like early on it was ugly with the back-to-backs, but I feel like we settled down. So I will say, knock on wood, cross my fingers, the biggest problem from last year was was the flags in the secondary, the PI flags, that Patrick and Peterson and Drake Kirkpatrick seemed to be, getting left and right. That hasn't been an issue so far. I mean, our secondary struggled a little bit today, but not a lot of pass interference flags, right? So the offensive line has been where most of our flags, and obviously the kicker one, but we settled down, right? So I think it was a marked improvement from last week. So what I think we need to do is just kind of just move forward and let our offensive line continue to do what they do, because I think it is cleaning up. Hopefully, it's just that first couple was just beginning of the game rust. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
yeah, I think they're on the right track. It's cleaning up a little bit.
Yeah.
The penalties weren't as atrocious as week one. They're getting there. It's early in the season, so I don't think it's time to completely freak out about them yet, because as long as they get better every week, I'm going to be okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have any word on the Marco Wilson injury. If anyone does, put in the chat. We're obviously going to check that out. I want to shout out to AZ Sportsman. What up, brother? He's going to be doing a live stream, I think, immediately following mine, if I got the time right. So y'all go check that out. He'll continue. Yeah, 2-0 fire, 2-0, and maybe a little bit of anxiety and high blood pressure, right? So yeah, for sure. What are you most worried about? I think this is a good thing to end on. We're going to wrap up now. So let's, and if y'all want to go, you can put in the chat, but we'll just kind of, I think I might hit a few of those, but what are you most worried about moving forward, Tyler?
So unless Keim does something crazy before the trade deadline, our secondary is basically going to be what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So I would just be most worried about the pass rush being consistent every single week, because if it is, we can cover up a lot of mistakes with a really dominant pass rush. But if it's going to be hit or miss week to week, it's going to put us in a lot of difficult spots. So I'm most worried about the pass rush after being completely absent after an incredibly good game.
I think you're right. The offense, yeah, Kyler had those interceptions that were a little bit, really pretty ugly. But if the defense plays, I mean, he also makes enough big plays. They scored enough points to win. The cornerback room has been the big concern coming in. I've been of the mind that they're not as bad as people think they are, and I still think I'm right about that. I think the cornerback room is.
You probably are.
Yeah, it's not a dumpster fire that people thought it was going to be, but it's also not as good as it looked last week. This week is probably more indicative of what our cornerback room is. They're going to make some mistakes. They're going to make some good plays. And if they have pass rush, they can get their job done even better. If they don't, they're going to struggle a little bit,
Yeah.
I'm sick to my stomach. Our performance, at least we got the win. Right. Yep. All right. Well, I think that's all we've got. I think we're gonna kind of end it a little shorter today. Yeah, JP's, they use short yardage to neutralize the pass rush. So we're going to go ahead and end it now. But man, a win is a win. Not the way you want to win, but you'll take it. So, all right, Cardinals fans, it's a good week. Maybe it's not as exciting as last week, but it is a good week. So we will see you all later, and peace.